classrooms, which the public never sees.
In the faculty, it strikes me, Professor, if you disagree, let me know. It's very incestuous when you have faculty members hiring faculty members, many from the same universities, many with the same ideology. You can see today you have certain faculty members that don't fit in with the hard left ideology. They're being pushed out of the universities. They're being boycotted by the students. They're under all kinds of pressure and threats. How did it come to be? How did it come to be that what we used to talk about academic freedom really doesn't exist, and we have really one ideological mindset at this point?
Well, you've had a very long campaign of converting the universities into one-party campuses. I mean, if you go back 50 years, study done by Carnegie Commission, 1969, there were 3 left-of-center professors to 2 right-of-center professors. Now, by the end of the century, 1999, another study finds that ratio of 3 to 2, which is very mild. And 3 to 2, that's consistent with a very healthy debate between the left and the right on campus. But by the end of the century, 1999, a study shows 5 to 1. So you've got a very great concentration building up. By another 5, 6 years later, it's gone to 8 to 1. And the current studies being done, coming out now, show something like 13 to 1. Now, there's every reason to believe that that's getting more extreme all the time, because one of these studies looked at the junior ranks, let's say the recent appointees, the assistant professors, associate professors, and found that the ratio there, left to right, is 48 to 1. So in other words, the hiring being done now is at the rate of about 50 to 1, not 5 to 1 or 8 to 1. So you're going to wind up with a complete monoculture within a short period of time. Now, everyone can see, anyone with a brain can see that's very unhealthy. You can't have a serious debate about the issues of the day when one party's missing. Now, what I find really, really strange about this is this, that everyone can see that it's wrong, that it's unhealthy, and no one does a thing to stop it. So campuses are full of people, professors, administrators, who see this happening, and they don't lift a finger to stop the progressing towards a complete one-party campus. Now, one-party campus is a campus that's dysfunctional.
When Bernie Sanders says we'll have free college, everybody ought to go to college, I got to thinking, why does he want everybody to go to college? Is it because this has become indoctrination and brainwashing mills with groupthink? I think so. And when I watch the so-called peaceful part of the mostly peaceful protests, I see what appear to me to be a lot of college students, probably some college professors, probably some members of the NEA and the AFT, as far as I can tell, since school is out, and it's been out for a very, very long time. What are these professors, as an aggregate, what are they teaching them about economics? What are they teaching them about history? Is it similar to the New York Times project that America began in 1619 with slavery, and that's in our DNA, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it? Is that the kind of indoctrination that's going on?
It is indeed. I mean, I think you can bet on the fact that most of the almost insane radical left ideas that are floating to the surface in the wider world now come ultimately from the campus. And the campus is so far left and so irrational now in its leftism that it is poisoning the culture. One profession after another is being essentially corrupted.
And you know, Professor, I happen to know a few young people who are going to universities. One of them is a law student, one of them is a medical student, one of them is an undergraduate student. And they all told me if they don't keep their politics, they're not necessarily conservative, they're not radical left. If they don't keep their politics to themselves, they are literally shunned. They are literally shunned or worse. They're not invited to any events. you know, it's just, and we keep funding these institutions. There's really no oversight. They have massive endowments from corporations and nonprofit organizations. Congress never looks at them. State legislatures never look at them, and they have enormous costs as they keep expanding and getting bigger and bigger. There has to be some kind of oversight on this, or some kind of competition, don't you think?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Academia is a very fad and fashion-driven place. I mean, you can bet that if a new politically correct folly arises on one campus, it'll spread to the other campuses very rapidly. So you don't have competition in the sense that you have, you know, a rational institution competing with an irrational institution. They all essentially adopt the same irrationality very quickly. Now, restoring competition is going to be a very difficult thing to do, precisely because the contagion spreads throughout the academia so rapidly. But if you have a one-party campus, that is by definition an irrational campus. You cannot have a one-party system that stays sane. Now, my favorite quote on this is John Stuart Mill, who said that you'll always need, to have a healthy political state, you'll always need a party of order and stability on the one hand, and a party of progress and reform on the other. And then he said that it's precisely the opposition of the one to the other that keeps each one of them within the bounds of reason and sanity. Now, that word sanity, that's strong language. What he's really saying is, you take away one of those parties, which is what you've done on university campuses. You take one party away, and the other one goes insane for lack of a discipline of having to answer to the arguments of the other. And that's where we are. We have a completely irrational campus. And there's no end in sight. If anything, it's getting worse as the ratio of left to right professors increases. And we reached a point now where, even though there's still a few left, most of them are intimidated and stay silent. And you see the occasional example of one that doesn't stay silent, and he's usually made an example of, which keeps the others quiet.
So we don't have academic freedom. We don't have free speech. The taxpayers keep subsidizing this. Parents keep subsidizing this. And maybe we taxpayers and parents ought to start taking a look at this. We'll be right back.
For over 30 years, Lexus has been celebrating driveway moments. Here's to one more.
Welcome back. Professor Ellis, before the break, I was talking about we seem to be subsidizing our own demise from within here, whether it's our federal and state tax dollars going into these schools, whether it's parents paying tuition, or even other people paying tuition, and you send your kids into these schools, and many of them come out quite differently ideologically. Why do we keep doing this, and is there something else we can do about it?
Well, you're right. I mean, part of the problem is that old habits die hard. I mean, parents have a very fixed attitude derived from the past that sending their kids to college is the first-rate way to launch them into life and a career. And then there's the fact that the great names of the institutions of higher learning, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, the magnificent buildings, everything is very, very impressive. It casts a kind of spell over the public. They really cannot believe at bottom that what was so glorious is now, in fact, no longer there. Now, there are some signs that the public is changing its attitude. There was a study done of the total number of kids in higher education 9 years ago, 2011. There were 20.5 million students in higher education. Today, that number is down to 17.5 million. But if you adjust for the increase in population, actually that should be, I mean, the gain, there should have been a gain from 20.5 to 21.5 million. So there are 4 million students missing. So it is true that the public is becoming more skeptical. But the simple outline of the situation is this. Parents through tuition, students through the indebtedness they get through the life of college, donors, and then state legislatures all contribute vast sums of money between them for higher education and then not getting it. What's happening instead is that that's a large amount of that, not all of it by any means, but a good chunk of that money, the majority of it, is an involuntary campaign contribution to the radical left. The public has to wake up and realize that it is paying lots of money to support something it doesn't want to support. And state legislatures need to get busy, looking very seriously at whether the appropriations that they make for the public funding higher education, whether they're really supporting higher education.
And of course, Professor, if you dare to touch it, they say you're attacking academic freedom, which of course, this ideology is destroying. Now, this ideology we're talking about, I'll just lay it out. You can tell me whether you agree or disagree. It is, if it's not flat out Marxism, it's some version of it. I mean, when I see the protesters in the street, what they're talking about, we have to burn down what exists. Everything that exists. The present must go, the history must go, pull down the statues, chisel out the names, and then we'll start new. I mean, that's like, that comes right out of the Communist Manifesto. Destroy the society that exists, the family, the churches, and everything else, and start with a clean slate. Is that what they're being taught?
Oh, good morning, Miss Lewis. Are you
Well,
ready
I'm afraid so. Some of the professors doing this actually call themselves Marxists, probably some like a quarter of them. At least in some areas. I mean, sociology, for example, certainly that's true. Some preach what are essentially Marxist ideas, but wouldn't call themselves Marxists. They'll call themselves socialists instead, or activists. But the end result is certainly the majority opinion on campuses now is to remake this society into something it isn't. To abolish the current what they call capitalist system, intelligent people call it free market system, and to remake it in the image that these radicals have. Now, if you ask them what that image is, you start to get very vague replies, because in fact, once you describe the conditions in a socialist country, they know very well that that doesn't go over very well. But there is really an animus against the way the country is and has been for some time. And the radical left is seizing the opportunity now to press its case, and it has essentially taken over the academic world. I mean, it is now boot camp for political radicalism. It is no longer a place that prepares children to confront the careers that are facing, the lives that are facing them, with the mental equipment to face new challenges, to analyze new situations, to respond to new challenges that they face. That's not happening. I mean, when a political activist tells you to get in line behind him and join the cause, higher education is stuff dead. There's no development of mental capacity involved in that. On the contrary, it's the other way around. The political radical is telling you to stop thinking, just do as you're told.
Well, you know, Professor, a society can't survive very long when its children and grandchildren are taught to hate it. They hate every bit of it. Yeah. And this has become ubiquitous, not only in universities and colleges, but you can see it in the media, you can see it in Hollywood. You have people who live in the lap of luxury in this society, whatever their race is, whatever their background is, who claim to be joining these revolutionary movements. It's almost chic. It's almost the cool thing to do. And so what we're doing, I think you'll agree, is we're losing the culture, the whole culture, the whole notion of America.
The culture.
Do you agree with that?
I'm afraid so. The academia is poisoning one profession after another. It's totally poisoned journalism. It's poisoned the teaching in the high schools, because the high school teachers are all trained on college campuses. And the society needs to wake up and decide whether it really wants to pay these vast sums of money to support this apparatus. Now, I mean, one has to face the fact that the one-party campus is made precisely because those ideas don't stand up to challenge very well. If the radicals allowed a healthy debate on campus, they lose. They always lose. So the only way they can actually win is by shutting out people with other ideas, and that's what they're doing. And the public has to throw off the spell created by the great names of Howard and Columbia and face the fact that that's the past. The present is quite different.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe great names like Hillsdale, Grove City, and some of the others should be talked about. Professor Ellis, fantastic book. The breakdown of higher education, crucially important. And I want to thank you for your bravery in coming on this program. God bless you.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
We'll be right back.